one of the biggest misconceptions with real estate investors is that we're just all evil landlords. So Henry, tell me a little bit basically about your background and how you got started in real estate investing.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit also about why you like this region.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we are all landlords. We're just not all evil landlords. I do think there are some bad apples, but I think there's way more good ones than there are bad ones. And so one of the reasons I love investing in real estate is because of the impact I get to have on my community. You know, we are providing housing for people. We are providing good, clean, safe housing. And we do our best to try to make sure that when we buy a property, we keep that property within the price point of that current neighborhood so that we're not pricing anybody out of their neighborhood. So there are very, I wouldn't say easy, but there are ways to be a successful landlord and you don't have to, play into all of the stereotypes I think that give landlords a bad rap. But I got started in this business in 2017. I bought my first house. It was not far from here, actually, and I bought that house using a 401k loan because I didn't have any money, and so I borrowed the money from a 401k. I actually borrowed the money from my wife's 401k, like I legit didn't have any money, and we bought that first rental property, and that deal was just like proof of concept to me that anybody can do this. Like I used to think you had to have money to make money kind of a thing. And that wasn't the situation with starting to invest in real estate. And so once I saw that proof of concept, we really just decided to go bigger and faster. And so after I bought that first rental, I think we did about 30 deals our first year.
Oh, wow.
Mostly leveraging other people's money and using banks' money to grow our money, essentially. Why I love Northwest Arkansas. It is a unique market in the sense that because it's still in Arkansas, you've got housing priced under the national median. But because it's this particular area of Northwest Arkansas, you've got large companies headquartered here like Walmart, Tyson Foods, J.B. Hunt, and you've got the University of Arkansas here in Fayetteville. And so all of those companies bring people from all over the world to have to live here. And then on top of all that, you've got a lot of people don't understand it, but it is somewhat of a tourist destination because of Walmart, but also because of the world-class museum we have here and because of the mountain biking capital of the world. I don't do any of that, but it's cool that people like it.
Yeah.
But all that said is it creates this unique real estate market where you can get and buy property at an affordable price and then rent it at a price that allows you to cash flow. And on top of all that, you get the appreciation because of all those things that I mentioned. So there's not a lot of markets where you can get good cash flow and good appreciation. You usually get one or the other or more of one than the other.
Yeah. And I think for me personally, as a short-term rental operator and hotelier here in Northwest Arkansas, I love the fact that there's multiple sources of tourism. There's not just mountain biking or not just leisure travel, but there's also all the corporate and medical travel and et cetera. So tell me a little bit about your current real estate portfolio. Like, what does that look like today? And what are your favorite types of deals?
Yeah, I'm boring. So my portfolio now we just hit 116 units just last week. Most of those are long-term rental. Of that 116 units, I've got 4 short-term rentals. And then we probably flip 10 to 15 houses per year. But that's mostly because my main strategy with real estate is I buy everything. So I don't do any assignments or wholesales. So I buy every good deal I come across. And then I'll either determine if I want to keep it or sell it. And then if I sell it, I'll either rehab it and sell it, or I won't rehab it and still sell it.
Okay. And I think I heard you mention that you normally target small to mid-sized multifamilies.
Yeah.
And why do you like that sort of asset class over any of the single families, let's say, or other types of real estate assets?
It has nothing to do with the financial aspects of it. You know, I think most people start with single family and then they move into multifamily and then they move into big multifamily because I think what people learn along the way is there's not much effort difference between buying a large scale multifamily and buying a small multifamily. Like the work is the same. right? And so you can make more profits with large scale multifamily. And I think that's why people move into that arena. But I don't do it that way because what I love about single family and small multifamily real estate is it's much more people focused. It's you can feel the impact on people more. It's you're providing housing to families, and yes, apartments provide housing as well, but it's different when you're operating a large apartment building. You're running a P&L, like you're running a business.
Yes,
You've
absolutely.
got to you've got to get your NOI where it's supposed to be, right? Like it's all about managing expenses and increasing income. With single and small scale multifamily, because there's less risk than a large scale multifamily because it's just a house, right? At the end of the day, somebody will live in it and buy it and rent it. Maybe that won't cash flow as much as you want, but in a year or two, you'll be able to sell it. Like it's less risky. And so, because it's less risky, I'm able to do things that maybe a large scale multifamily operator wouldn't be able to do to support my community. Maybe I'll let a seller that I bought a property from live in the house for 3 months or 6 months without paying any rent because that's what they need in terms of service to be able to, move and find the next place. I can be a lot more flexible with the community. I can have more of an impact on the people through the flexibility of single and small scale multifamily. That just makes me feel good. So I say large apartment buildings don't give me the warm fuzzies. Is essentially
Okay.
a long
Yeah,
way of saying
that's a
that.
really good point.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people talk about the numbers on the deals and the best deal in terms of numbers. So instead of just doing that, can you tell me one of your favorite deals to date when it comes to numbers, but also
Yeah.
one when it comes to the warm and fuzzy,
Yeah.
so to speak?
Yeah, I think the deals that give me the biggest warm fuzzies are the deals we didn't do. Because at the end of the day, I'm going into people's houses and we're buying at a discount. And most of the time, if somebody's willing to sell at a discount, it's because there's some problem they need to solve by selling the house and getting the money to go solve that problem. But sometimes you can solve their problem without buying their house. And I just feel like I have an obligation to do that where it makes sense. So, like the best warm fuzzies are, one of the best ones was I walked into a house, a lady who wanted me to buy her house. She reached out to me on my website, showed me around the whole house, told me she wanted me to make her an offer, but her body language didn't say the same thing as her words. And so I asked her, what's going on? Why it doesn't seem like you want to sell. And she was behind on her mortgage by a few months, and she needed to get caught up at least by 2 months in order to buy her some more time to stay in the house. And she had some money coming in the future, but she wasn't going to make it, so she was just going to sell her house because she figured I'll take some money instead of losing it and getting no money. And so instead of buying her house, we just paid her mortgage for 2 months, and we paid her utilities for 2 months because that's what she needed. She didn't need to sell. So that stuff makes me feel good. Like, did it cost me money? Yeah. Did I get a return on that investment? Not monetarily, but I did, like in here. So that stuff is fun for me. As far as the best deal that I've done, like my best deals are like really high cash flowing rental properties. Like we bought 4 duplexes. I mean, these things were trash, like raining inside kind of trash, like holes in the ceilings. And when we went to go look at it, we were like, can we get keys to get in? And he was like, oh, no, you don't need keys. Do you have a power drill? And we were like, yeah. He was like, yeah, that's good enough, because all the doors were just screwed shut. And so we went out there with the power drill and we're walking, and it was raining inside on our heads. And I mean, these things were bad. People were hanging out in there that weren't supposed to be in there. Lots of drugs and things. And so it was all 4 of these were on a cul-de-sac that only had 2 other properties. And so us buying those, fixing them and turning them around provided great affordable housing to that same community, completely turned the street around that nobody wanted to go down or be at anymore. And now it's this nice, we painted them like bright, pretty colors on purpose. Like we
Okay.
wanted to draw
Yeah.
attention to the fact that this place is better now
Yeah.
and people should come here. And so like that stuff is fun and it feels good. But because they were so dilapidated, we bought all 4 duplexes. I think we paid a total of 200,000
Wow.
combined, and then we put maybe, I don't know, another 150 into the whole thing. And then each duplex, each side rents for now probably rents for about 900 to 1,000 per door. So it's a great deal.
In terms of investing, just finding that purpose and helping the local community, when did you realize that you could have that sort of impact with real estate investing?
Pretty early on, you learn early on if you're buying off market that the people reaching out to you really do need help. And the more you can find a way to solve people's problems, the more deal flow essentially you get. And so I just started to, like, early on, I realized if I stop walking to these appointments and seeing them as deals that I have to close and start seeing these are people I have to help. And if I help them, no matter if it results in me buying their house or not, business will get better. I will make money. But the goal shouldn't be to make money. The goal should be this is a seller, most likely in a difficult situation. Figure out a way to be of service, whether that means you buy their house or not. And money tends to make itself. So even if I don't buy the deal from the seller that I'm trying to help in the moment, I've had sellers recommend other people that I had no idea they did. And then a year later, I get a call and they said, hey, you helped my neighbor, with X, Y, and Z, and now we're looking to sell our house. Could you come and take a look at it? I've people have accepted my offer on property that wasn't as high as maybe other investors' offers because we were willing to help. And that gave them some peace that we were actually trying to help and not just trying to make a bunch of money off of people. The most recent example is I just bought a house I paid 148,000, and I think she had an offer of like 155 from somebody else. But she went with my offer, and the reason she went with my offer is because when we were there touring the house, the utilities were off. And I asked her why the utilities were off, and she said she was behind on the utilities and just struggling to get caught up, and she would have to pay $500 to get everything turned back on, and she just didn't have it. And I said, well, why would I just turn your utilities back on so that you can have that? And, this was before I even was making, we were just starting this tour. And so I didn't even know if I wanted to buy the house or not yet, but I knew I could help her. So I called my wife, we called the company, we paid her utilities, she got her utilities back on. And then when she didn't decide she wanted to sell for like 30 days later, but she called me and took my offer that was lower than another one because we were willing to help.
When you were first starting out, and you mentioned that you bought over 30 properties just in your first year, and some of those were with partners and other people's private money, how were you able to start leveraging other people's money and resources so early on when you didn't really have 1, 2, 3 years of track records
Yeah.
already?
There's some fancy saying I think is like necessity is the best teacher. Like I just didn't have money, so I had to figure out how to use other people's money. Like I said, I had $1,000 in my savings account when I bought my first deal, and so I didn't have 20% down every time I wanted to buy a deal. Like I had to figure out ways to do it that didn't involve me putting my own capital into the deal. And two of the best ways to do deals without your own capital. One is bring in the partner that has some capital, and the other is find a funding source that will provide you the money without you having to put a down payment or cover that gap funding with private money of some other kind. And so we just got really good at funding deals through small local banks. And then if it required a down payment, we would then borrow that down payment from some other source, friends. I've borrowed money from my grandmother-in-law, coworkers, uh, friends from back home that I haven't seen in ages. Just, there's tons of people out there that, have 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 grand sitting around that they would love to help you do a real estate deal and make some money, and I tell my students now, I'm like, look, you're providing people an opportunity to make money. Like if I'm going to do a real estate deal, I'm going to borrow money. I'm going to borrow it from a bank, and then I'm probably going to borrow a down payment from somewhere, and then somebody's going to make interest. I would much rather that money go to somebody I love, like, know, or trust than to some rando bank person. So yeah, let's make money together.
Very cool. So for someone who's starting out and doesn't really know what they want to do with real estate yet, and but they want to make an impact, what would you say to them?
Um, yeah, man, I was talking to a potential student recently who kind of had a similar question. They were trying to figure out if they wanted to do new development or single small multifamily or large scale multifamily. And my advice is always, you know, don't pick your strategy purely based on financial gain because this business is hard. Like, no matter which route you take, real estate will kick you in the teeth, man. People forget that, like, there's great wins in real estate, meaning, like, you buy a property that you're going to keep, you'll build cash flow and wealth for a long time. Like, you flip a house, you can make 50, 60, 70 grand. Like, that's awesome. There's big wins. But there's a lot of lows and losses to get to that big win. People don't realize how many punches in the mouth you take on the way to those wins. And, people see stuff like what we're doing now on social media and they're like, yeah, real estate, I'm going to do it, right?
Yes.
These guys did it, I'm going to do it. And then they get started and get kicked in the face and they're like, this is hard. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so you've got to be prepared for the downs. There's a lot of lows before you get to your high. And so to endure the lows, I think, you need a good reason why. Everybody knows that. But besides that, like, your strategy should also, like, breathe life into you. And so, like, find a strategy that will provide you some monetary gain that fits your financial goals, but will also give you some of the warm fuzzies. Like, I love single and small multifamily real estate. I love the impact I get to have on the families and the communities. I love driving by houses I've redone and see kids playing in the yards and see toys outside, and like, that fills me up. And so, like, it keeps me wanting to stay on my path and keeps me wanting to endure the difficult times because I love the impact that I get to have. Plus, I get to make it meets the financial goals that I have. So if you've got financial goals, great. You should pick a strategy that's going to get you there. But if there's a strategy that's going to get you there maybe a little slower, but will give you that warm fuzzy. Maybe it's you want to provide affordable housing. Maybe it's you want to provide housing to, women who've been abused. Maybe it's you want to provide housing to, you know, um, military vets who are struggling. Like, whatever that is, like, if you can mix that with your real estate financial strategy, like, you'll rock it.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of similarities between startup founders who are really, really passionate about that
Yes.
project
Yeah.
versus startup founders who are just looking to get rich quick.
Yeah.
And would you say that basically for real estate investors is really the same thing?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, is whatever you're passionate about, that's what you should be doing.
Yeah. I mean, I think passion will help you stay the course. You need more than just passion, and you need more than just money. It's where those two things intersect that I think you will have success.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So I guess one last piece of advice for anyone looking to get started in 2024, let's get it more like
Yeah.
market specific.
Yeah.
What do you think might be specific challenges for someone looking to get started now versus maybe 2, 3 years ago?
Yeah. So I'll say the obvious things and then I'll say the inverse of that. I think the challenge that most people are expecting us to talk about is interest rates are high. And so you can't find anything that cash flows, or the price of real estate is super expensive. So I can't find anything that the numbers make sense. I don't believe that. Like, that's not the challenge because those things are easily combated by offering less. And I think the challenge people have in 2024 isn't that they can't find properties that cash flow. The challenge people have in 2024 is having the guts and having the persistence and patience to consistently make offers at the price points that make sense. I said this the other night at the panel you invited me to. Every deal cash flows. People say, I can't make anything cash flow. Yes, you can. You just didn't offer little enough. You have to offer less. What's the price point that property cash flows? That's the offer you have to make. But people see somebody asking, $200,000 for a house. They know it's only going to rent for $1,500. So they actually need to buy it for like 125. So they have a little bit of money to fix it up so they can be all in at 150. Well, then you got to offer 125. But people see that, they go, oh, well, they want 200. I can't make that cash flow. There's no deals out here. Well, you didn't offer. You have no idea if that's a deal or not yet. You have no idea what that seller's motivation is to sell. Maybe they'll take an offer of 125. You won't know unless you make the offer. And so I think the struggle people are going to have in 2024 is you got to get over the mental hurdle of being able to make offers at price points that make sense to you, and then being able to explain to either the agents helping you submit the offers or the sellers who you're submitting the offers to why you're doing that. Like, I don't just go out there and say, I'll give you a 120. Right? Like, they're going to say no. I explain the process. I say, hey, I totally understand you want 200. I can offer you 125, and here's why. Because I have to buy it, and then I'm going to have to put $25,000 worth of work into it. And if I actually end up selling that property, I'll have to pay a realtor 6%, and then I'll have to pay closing costs. I'm going to pay your closing costs when I buy it, and I'll probably have to pay closing costs again when I sell it. And so if you do all the math on all those fees, it equals this amount of money. And that's money I'm not going to make. On top of that, I need to make a profit. So if I add in my profit plus all those fees and you subtract that from the $200,000 price, I end up at 125, right? So that's how I got there. I'm not just lowballing you to lowball you. I just have to make offers where it makes sense for me. If that offer doesn't work for you, I totally understand. I want you to get the price that makes the most sense for you, but this is where I need to be.
Would you say it's easier or harder compared to maybe 2 years ago? And maybe that's too simple, oversimplifying the question a little bit. But do you think it's hard? Do you have to make twice as many offers basically to make the numbers work?
The volume, you have to make the volume of offers has to be higher right now. And that's not because of the interest rates, or it's more because of people's expectation of prices. So because 2020 and 2021 and 2022 were so artificially inflated because they dropped the rates so drastically, it forced pricing to go up, and then people got used to those prices. And so now, as prices have started to come down across the country, people still feel like they want that 2020, 2021, 2022 price, when people now are struggling to afford those prices. And so it's just an expectation thing. At some point, people will start to realize whatever the new price point is. It just takes a little bit of time, right? If the prices, interest rates stay where they are for a little while, and pricing will naturally start to come down, and people will start to understand that their house isn't worth what it was, 2 and 3 years ago. So 2 and 3 years ago, real estate's cyclical. So like, there's always going to be a portion of the process that's easier in a given time. A couple of years ago, it was really easy to go find the money because interest rates were low, banks were wanting to do more deals, there was less risk in the deals, and so you could get money for a deal super easy. It was harder to find a deal because there was so much competition. Everybody was out there trying to buy a house because interest rates were low. So a couple of years ago, it was harder to find a deal, easy to find money. Now it's easier to find a deal because there's less competition because the interest rates are so high.
Yeah.
But money's harder to find. Banks have tightened up on their lending. So it's always going to be one or the other.
Yep. All right. So biggest takeaway. So you can choose between business or life or real estate in specific, but what are 3 things that someone starting out can find purpose in either their business or their real estate career?
What do you mean? What do you mean
Like just
purpose?
3, kind of like an action plan. Like, let's say I'm starting out. I don't really know how to find what makes me really, really passionate about real estate. How do I find that 1 or 2 real estate strategies that work best for me and my goals and what I'm really passionate about?
Yeah, I think that's a tough question for some people. So here's what I would do. And it's super generic, but it is what it is. And I think I love this kind of stuff, and it works. So I don't know that you have to figure that out. I would say what you need to do is decide that you're going to figure that out. Does that make sense? So what you need to do is tell yourself, I'm going to find a real estate niche that fits my passion and fits my financial situation. And if you literally write that down 3 times a day in the morning when you wake up, just write it on a piece of paper. Like, don't type it in your phone, put pen to paper. I will find a real estate niche that fits my passion and my financial goals. What'll happen is you're opening your brain up to seeing what those opportunities are. Because we may not know, like, some people just don't know what makes them happy yet. Like, if you ask somebody what makes you happy, like half the people you ask will go, I don't really know. I don't know, right? So if you're that kind of a person, like just you don't have to go figure out what will make you happy. You just have to decide you're going to figure out what's going to make you happy. You can write down, I will find the thing that gives me life or makes me happy, right? And so when you do that, it's the red truck theory, right? Like you never see a red truck until you buy one, and then everybody else owns a red truck, right? It's not that there's more red trucks now that you bought yours. There's the same amount. It's just that you've turned your brain on to the idea that they're all out there, and so everyone you see, you're like, oh, there's one. So you just need to turn your brain on to the idea that you're going to find that thing that fits your goals, that fits your passion, that fits your financial gain. And then as you do things like listen to me and you rant and rave on a podcast, or turn on social media, things will start to catch your attention that maybe didn't catch your attention before, and you'll go, oh, Section 8. I hadn't even thought about that. I could do Section 8. I would love to do Section 8, right? Like, but it's just more turning your brain on to the idea that that you will find that thing versus trying to figure it all out in one sitting.
Yeah, that's true. So thank you so much for your time today. Where can people learn more about you and what you do?
Absolutely. You can find me Instagram. I'm at the Henry Washington on Instagram, or check out my website. It's www.cuyouattheclosingtable.com.
Thank you again, and thanks for watching. If you like what you see, be sure to hit that subscribe button.